Well, if you've got a to-do list of things you want to get done before 2025, you better hurry. The year is winding down, and the Rangers have a couple of things on the to-do list, some of which might be addressed today. We've got that story and so much more coming up on the DLLS Rangers Podcast. Yeah, so what's missing as the Rangers approach the end of this year, the beginning of next year, and more importantly, next season? We talk about some of those things as we welcome you into the DLLS Sports Studios. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. John Radigan here. I'm Rads with J-Dub, still in Colorado, and we've got the Prophet over here. He is back, and it's good to have him back in the seat, and we're glad to have you too. We ask you to like us and subscribe to us, and please chat along with us today if you would, so we can talk to you and continue to keep this Rangers narrative going. It's getting exciting, Jeff, as we now know that the Rangers are moving forward with something at a 3:30 press conference today.
Yeah, all indications are it's Joc Pederson. He reached the agreement, but he hadn't passed the physical, and with Christmas and everything, there was no real hurry to do it. In fact, I'll be honest, if it is indeed Pederson, which we all seem to think it is, I'll be surprised that they actually got it done this early. They usually are like, don't worry about it, no rush. But getting it done, and and then moving on to other things.
Yeah, and obviously we'll discuss some of what those other things still need to be. But with regard to Pederson, again, this is a guy who has played some outfield in his career, Jeff. But we expect this guy to come in here and be a designated hitter pretty much every time he plays, yes?
Yeah, I can't imagine that it's going to be a heavy load of outfield. He's pretty terrible, really, is what I've been told out in the outfield. And it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. I love bad outfield play. I just think it's funny. And, I'm going to, if he does play, I'm really going to be excited about it. But he hasn't played in the outfield since 2022. He's played a little, and I mean a little, first base. So maybe in a pinch, he can be the backup third baseman or first baseman, but it's looking like a DH, probably only against right-handers. So when the Rangers have a rash of lefties, well, then he'll play. That'll be when Bruce Bochy uses the DH spot to give guys a rest.
Yeah, and you bring that up, and I hadn't thought of this, Jeff. But now that Nathaniel Lowe has been moved, who is the backup first baseman to Jake Burger?
Well, that's an interesting question. It could be Ezekiel Duran, who we'll touch on here in a little bit. It could be Justin Foscue, who's on the 40-man roster. It could be Blaine Krim, who, I bang the drum pretty loudly for Blaine Krim. So there are guys who can come in and do it. Right now, though, it looks like it will indeed be Duran. Honestly, I mean, if I had to put a gun to my head, that's what I would say. But the Rangers really like Foscue. He had a lot of work to do on his swing this offseason. So we'll see what that looks like in spring training.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And again, obviously at that point, Justin Foscue would have to make the club out of spring training. It's more expected that Ezekiel Duran would do such, since he's been with the big club for each of the last couple of seasons. And he played a handful of games at that position to spell Nathaniel Lowe in the past.
Yeah, he has. And, I think Bruce Bochy's even said that Josh Smith can play first base. I mean, all right, let's keep him on the left side of the infield. and Jonah Heim has a first baseman's glove. There are ways to cover that position, but Foscue and Krim, if it's not Duran, would be probably the preferred infield choices or internal choices.
Yeah, so we feel like, obviously, then, that Joc Pederson will be the designated hitter anytime the Rangers face a right-handed pitcher, which is the majority of games, obviously. Probably 75% of the time or more, you face a right-handed pitcher. So who DHs when they face a lefty?
It's a good question. And again, I think it's a rotating thing. That could be the day that Adolis Garcia gets off his feet, or the day that Corey Steger gets a day down. I'm not sure that Josh Young wouldn't be a pretty good candidate for some extra DH days this season. It can rotate if they want it to make it more of a permanent spot. If they want all those guys in the field, then again it's Foscue. It's maybe it's Krim. But and shoot, maybe this might be a spot where Jake Berger gets a day off and DHs. They really prefer that, and Chris Young said at the winter meetings, and Bruce Bochy said it too. If you want to give me David Ortiz, yeah, I'll take an everyday DH, but they do really value having some flexibility in that spot.
Yeah, and it certainly wouldn't hurt. I mean, if we're talking about the areas where there is depth on this team, most of them are covered, right? Most areas of this team are pretty deep. But one area that's not deep is outfield because, again, who knows how the roster will shake out, but your fourth or fifth outfielder could easily be a couple of guys who really aren't natural at that position in Josh Smith or Ezekiel Duran. So I guess if the world was perfect, Jeff, you'd go get that right-handed hitting outfielder somewhere left in free agency.
Yeah, and there's always guys out there that you need to look at the platoon guys. I think remember when they signed Robbie Grossman initially in 2023, it was there. Donnie Ecker, the hitting coach, said, "Look at what he does against left-handers." And it was pretty darn impressive.
Yeah.
So it could be a guy like that for sure. And I'm sure there are a bunch of them out there, some veteran guys at that, and that's always the key with a platoon. You want to have veteran guys who know how to sit for extended stretches, but when their name is called, they're ready to go. And you can say a lot of things about Robbie Grossman, but he was always ready to go. He always gave a good at bat. Really pretty keen eye at the plate. Didn't necessarily drive the ball as much as a right-handed hitter as he did as a left-handed hitter, but you can't argue with the numbers. The OPS, well above league average, productive guy from the right side. Honestly, don't discount Robbie Grossman. I'm serious. He loves it here, and he knows he would know his role. And Bochy and the guys just love him as a professional. So, but yeah, somebody like that, maybe it ends up being a minor league deal. Maybe it ends up being a signing that is in camp. Starts. Camp starts. That was the deal with Grossman after all. So there are a lot of time, a lot of names out there that they can.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Robbie. You talk about Robbie Grossman being that professional. And, we hear that term a lot in baseball. He's a professional. He's a true professional. And basically what that means in baseball parlance is this is a guy who comes to work every day, works hard, sets a good example, and who is, like you say, ready to go at a moment's notice. I mean, those are some of the attributes that are there for a guy who's a professional. I mean, they're all professionals,
Right, but good teammate, isn't caught off guard when his name gets called in the fifth inning to go pinch hit. A guy who knows how to pinch hit, somebody who follows the game. It's so valuable. Travis Jankowski's that guy. but somebody who doesn't rock the boat when they're not playing for a week, and they know their role, and at this point in their careers, they know who they are. They know they're not playing every day, right? And if they do, they're going to get exposed. So it'll be a veteran. I saw my buddy Tato who said Kevin Pillar or Ramon Laureano are examples of guys who would fill that spot exactly. Guys who can help you out defensively, and guys who are veterans. I mean, Pillar's talked about retiring, so that's how he is. So it's a way to fill out this roster, as the Rangers are now apt to say, raise the floor of the roster. If you want to give Justin Foskey some competition, you bring in a veteran guy and make Justin Foskey beat out the veteran.
Yeah, I saw their Hawk commander suggested for the DH. When you're facing a left-handed pitcher, what about Josh Smith at shortstop and Corey Seager as the DH? Not a bad idea to get Corey off his feet some. Again, it's somewhat counterintuitive, but Josh Smith, a lefty, has reverse splits basically.
Yeah, he doesn't hurt you, and he gets on base against him. He got hit up by a lot of pitches, and a lot of them were from left-handers. So that's one way to do it. The defense is probably better, for being honest, and if we're assuming that Josh Young is healthy and all of that in that scenario. But yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
No, that wouldn't hurt my feelings either. I hate to, because again, we're doing a deeper dive to keep our, wonderful diehards and our chat people and everybody more involved with what's happening this offseason. So it is. We've both talked about this off the air. It's gotten us more in tune with what's happening in this offseason, perhaps more so than ever before, because we get to talk about it every day. But here's one of the things I hate about that, Jeff. I was looking through stuff today, and I saw that the Rangers, if this Joc Pederson deal is done, which we think it will be today, the Rangers will have 14 players with a J on their name. It's the most in Major League Baseball. So, I'm sorry about that. J.
There's some hard-hitting stuff there.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? I mean, analytics and all that stuff be damned, Jeff. J as a first name. Yeah. 14 of them. Out of 40, I think. Or is that 25? I don't know. I can't remember. It didn't really say.
We don't need to wait. We don't need to name them all, but they have a bunch of Joshes. They have the market corner on Joshes and Jacobs with that Jacob Webb. Yeah. And Jake Berger, Jacob DeGrom. Jacob's a big player with the Rangers.
It's a huge player, and I usually like to, when I fill out my lineup card, I like to put whatever that player, the home team player, I like to put just their shortest name. And so, but, I had to put Young, same as Josh, but I wanted to put Josh, right, because I like him. But then Josh Smith comes in, so which Josh is it? You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of confusion that we have to deal with here. So, and now Joc. I will say this: Joc might be one of the great names in all of sports, but certainly in all of baseball.
Well, when I think of Joc, I think of Joc Ewing, the patriarch of the Ewing family,
Ewing clan, sure.
Dallas. Yeah, but Joc's solid. Joc is a solid name.
Really good baseball name, and again, a guy who, if this announcement is what we think it is today, a guy who gets basically, Jeff, a 2-year deal for, what are we talking about, $18.5 million, or is it $18.5 million? I think, right?
Yeah, and there's a question in the chat about how much money's left before the Rangers hit the luxury tax, and you can kind of estimate it. And we have, I think last week we did, but we still don't know how this deal is structured. It could be, there could be a signing bonus involved. There could be, some deferral in there. It could be a backloaded deal, which might actually entice them to not opt out if the Rangers wanted to do that. So I don't, the Rangers are getting closer, but I think they still have the money to do this Pederson deal and
Yeah.
still do a closer.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw Roster Resource, they were north of $215 million. The CBT, luxury tax as it were, is at $241 million, but they still need to sign a closer. So, and they want to leave themselves some room. They'd like to be in the 225 or under range to have a little room for flexibility during the offs or during if for something to happen in season, I should say.
Yeah.
So that's some of the things they're considering. We've got lots more to talk about. We've got one other area that's not completed yet. That, of course, is the closer role. Jeff and I will talk about that. Also, what's Zeke up to? We've got an update there and so much more as we continue with the DLLS Rangers podcast. Let's go with Jeff first, Prophet. We'll do it on the timing thing. Jeff's got Empire.
I love talking about Empire Today and the carpet and the flooring that they helped so many people in our area for so long. Really, John, ever since probably you moved here, and definitely since I started my freshman year at TCU in 1993, I remember Empire Today. Here's the deal: EmpireToday.com/DLLS for $350 off. These guys shop at home convenience is big with them. They make sure you get the right products. They're quick and professional on the installation, and they have a low price guarantee. It's not like going to a big box store with Empire Today. You're getting experts, and they will take you through step by step. They have a virtual floor designer, so you can see how the floors look at any space in your house. It's about as good as it gets. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners, like I said, can receive $350 off when they use the promo code DLLS. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/DLLS for details.
Pretty good internal clock there, J-Dub. And yeah, I want to tell you about Shady Rays. Another one of those days where you need the shades, and there are no better shades than Shady Rays. Love mine. I'll be wearing them as I head to the ballpark today for that 3:30 press conference, and then I'll be wearing them, inside there too, just show everybody what they look like so that they know this is a cool pair of sunglasses. They're so versatile. They're lightweight. They're durable, and if you lose them or you have an accident with them, they're replaceable. So there's really nothing not to like about these Shady Rays sunglasses. They are great polarized sunglasses that you can get for a fairly reasonable price. So I encourage you to go to ShadyRays.com. This is the best deal they've had, and they've had it for a while. So take advantage of it. ShadyRays.com with the code DLLS, 35% off. So that other area, Jeff, of obviously no depth, because no player yet is closer. Now, and truthfully, when you think about it, in 2023, there was tremendous depth at closer. Now, again, we've talked long and much about the problems of that bullpen as a whole in 2023. But when you think about the fact that Will Smith started the year essentially as the closer, you had a former closer, Jose Leclerc, as a potential closer. Just before the deadline that year, they got a really good former closer and, still could do that and did some in Aroldis Chapman. I mean, and then you had Josh Sborz, who has closer in him and closed out the season. There was depth at that position, so it's not out of the question to think there could be more than one closer before this thing is all said and done.
100%. And Chris Young and Ross Fencermaker have both said that the bullpen may not be a finished product on opening day, and that kind of points to what moves they can make at the trade deadline. Josh Sborz coming back, maybe he would jump into the mix after he gets the feel for things again. So, but still, just going in with a guy, not making sure that's not a spring training storyline. Who's the closer? Who's the closer? Go sign Kirby Yates for 2 years and $21 million, and be done with it for 2 years. And I just think that's the next shoe to drop. They do have a need for probably a veteran setup guy, and they can do that. I think there are a lot of relievers out there who are remain unsigned. And, remember Sean Kelly, for instance, and what was that, 2016 or 2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
18, I think, yeah.
$2.5 million, and he came in and did a real nice job for this team. They got Ian Kennedy in 21. Dirt cheap. He came in and did a great job. They ended up flipping him. It didn't work out on that trade, but these guys have some. There are a lot of guys like that who can come in and help out this ball club.
Yeah, and they've done a really good job thus far of bolstering this bullpen, propping it back up, basically building it, rebuilding it for similarly low price tags.
Right. The Jacob Webb signing, I think $1.25 million. That seemed to just surprise everybody. And then it's not like Milner and Armstrong have cost an arm and a leg. These are veteran guys who, if you want to say they're coming off of bad seasons, that's fair. They're rebound candidates. Something that that the Rangers believe are out there, and all teams do really. But if you look at their underlying numbers, like their fielding independent pitching, pretty solid. And they picked up the Robert Garcia in the trade with the Nationals, and he's another guy that had the wonky FIP and ERA last year. So there is some upside there in the bullpen signings that they've made. None, though, is a closer candidate. So that's not to say that one day you might not see Jacob Webb in the ninth inning if whoever the closer is needs a day down. But I don't think that's how the role the Rangers envision for those guys right now.
It's an interesting thought, too, isn't it? I mean, generally, you don't develop a closer, right? As much as you develop all of these other positions in your organization, a closer just kind of, maybe in some ways almost graduates, if you will, from that other high leverage situation to the most high leverage of situations.
Yeah, and sometimes, most guys with big arms, when they're drafted or signed internationally, they're given a chance to start. You want to develop a starting pitcher who's going to just kick ass and take names and all of that stuff. But then he'll run into a problem, or a pitch won't develop, or there'll be a limitation that keeps him from being a starting pitcher. Neftali Feliz, all right, when the Rangers got him in that blockbuster trade in 2007, he was a starting pitcher. In 2009, they brought him. They let him work as a reliever, brought him up. Yeah, was a terrific closer in 10 and 11. The Rangers have some big arms down in the minors right now. Emiliano Teodo is probably the one that a lot of people are like, man, can this guy keep starting? He's 5'10". He's a little fella, throws hard as can be. His command got better this last year. His slider got better, but is it big league stuff? Well, they want to find out. Jack Leiter, there's talk about making him a reliever. Well, you don't want to do that right now if you're with the number 2 overall pick in the draft. So these things, like you said, do happen, but the development side, you don't. Very rarely anymore do you see a guy drafted as a closer, and be like, all right, this is our closer of the future, unless it's like a kick-ass college arm. But even then, it takes time, and then so you're right. I would say one exception maybe that the Rangers have is Skylar Hales, who finished last year at Double-A and pitched in the fall league. He throws 100 miles an hour, and he's pretty much been a reliever since the day the Rangers got him in the 23 draft in the 4th round. So that's an arm to keep an eye on. But yeah, you're right. A lot of these closers, you just kind of stumble upon them, and lo and behold, there he is.
Yeah, because it's such a mentality thing too, right? For the individual. I mean, there are guys out there who just don't want that. It's all on my shoulders, sort of. Or I don't even know if they don't want it, but it's difficult to handle it, to withstand that sort of it's all on my shoulders pressure and getting those final 3 outs. All right, Jeff, let's talk about Ezekiel Duran and some of the news we saw coming from the Dominican and his winter league continuation or lack of same.
Yeah, it kind of a tweet from a reporter down there who said, had a picture and said this Rangers player has been told that he's no longer playing winter ball, and it's an unfortunate break for the team he was with because they're in a playoff hunt. But Zeke said he was at 25 games, 102 plate appearances. Apparently, he had a little leg issue that he was dealing with, so it just made sense to not continue. As much as he was doing well too. A couple home runs. He had an OPS above 750, so it looked like he was having himself a nice little stint down there. But his job is not to help a Dominican team win the Winter League. It's to help the Texas Rangers be the best they can be. So no need to flirt with any kind of soreness, or even if it's something he would play through in a regular season situation. Sit him down, get him right for spring training. He'll play a lot in spring training, and we talked about him as a first baseman. He's going to play all over the place. He can play outfield. He's got that big arm, and he had a couple of really impressive throws and outfield assists this season or this year as an outfielder. So it makes a lot of sense to do that. Now the report was like Duran didn't know, and there's like a text string between Ezekiel and the reporter, and that could just be Zeke trying to save face, and not make Dominican people, fans or teammates, mad at him for stopping or agreeing to stop playing. He could say, "Oh man, I want to keep going, but they want to pull me back." That's just one theory that I was told. So anyway, Duran is done in winter ball, and the important thing, I guess, also, a lot of people thought because he was stopping playing that he was a trade was imminent. Well, the Rangers source said there's no trade imminent with Ezekiel Duran, so that's where that stands. But it was kind of a weird thing that I think it popped up Saturday. Yeah, I was watching the Broncos game up here, and had to send off some text messages to figure out what was going on.
Well, so here's the deal, or the question, I guess. How long, they're in is his team actually in the playoffs right now down there in the Dominican?
They're in the hunt.
Okay. When does their playoff, they get their playoffs done before spring training?
Yeah. The playoffs will be in a couple weeks. And, because they also have the Caribbean World Series that will be played, but it'll take you right up to the start of February if you were to go all the way. And it would be nice for Ezekiel to get a lot of at bats because he's not going to play every day, and it'd be nice for him to come into spring training hot and all of that. But you also never know, if the wrong injury happens, Ezekiel Duran might be an everyday player, and you'd rather him, if it were to happen in early April, like let's say last year with Josh Young, you'd like your new everyday third baseman, to not be exhausted, to not have 300 at bats over the last 3 months under his belt. You'd want him to be ready to go and get you however many at bats you're going to need from him, and have him be fresh.
Yeah, it's interesting how the big league club's attitude about winter ball has changed over the years. Back in the day, if you weren't a star, first of all, if you weren't a superstar in the old days, you kind of had to go to winter ball to supplement your income, and right. The team certainly had no problem with it.
Well, Ron Washington would always tell the story. He played winter ball every year. There was financial incentive, yes, but he also knew that he would have to go to camp to win a job. And so he wanted to hit the ground running and be the hottest guy out there and start, raking and get an advantage on the rest of the guys he was competing against. And you kind of saw it a couple years ago with Blaine Krim, who went to Puerto Rico, won the batting title down there. And then he came into spring training and those, live batting practice sessions that these guys throw early on before games, he's like taking guys deep. He was like ready to go. Yeah. So, there is some validity to that. And I think, if it's a guy trying to win a job, then yeah, he's going to stay there as long as he can so he can get a leg up when he gets to whatever camp he signs with.
Yeah, so interesting development with Zeke, but really nothing to see here, if you will, people. Nothing to see here. Ezekiel Duran will be fine, and he'll be ready for spring training with the Rangers. So more coming up as we get to some of the questions about starting pitchers who remain out there, including a couple of former Rangers starting pitchers who've barely gotten any nibbles as free agents. And we'll also talk about the fact that Roki Sasaki's agent is going to address the media this evening. We'll talk with Jeff about that and more as the DLLS Rangers podcast continues.
Hey guys, Rugged Road. It was kind of interesting. My nephew, who's just finished his master's degree at Kansas State, he's been up here with his family, my sister, and then he just went hiking yesterday in the Rocky Mountain National. He went snowshoeing in Rocky Mountain National Park. And I was thinking, man, I wonder if he could have taken a Rugged Road cooler with him, because they're light, they're durable, and they're made for guys just like Logan, who loves the outdoors. He actually works. That's kind of his livelihood, research and such on wildlife. So for me, that ain't me. But I do have two kids that play a lot of baseball and softball, and you need those coolers in the summertime to keep drinks fresh, food fresh, everything cool, and that's what Rugged Road does pretty much better than anybody we know out there. I mean, just great stuff. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Rugged Road, your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use the code DLLS for 10% off.
Yeah, we appreciate Rugged Road, and we certainly appreciate FOCO. Their stuff is all over. It was and is all over and under the tree that we're getting ready to take down now. But there was plenty of stuff purchased from FOCO, because they have pretty much everything for anyone in any size and almost any style. And not just clothing. They've got knickknacks. Now, you can't see many of ours right now because the tree is still there. This one, too, probably coming down fairly soon. But anyway, FOCO was a big player around our house at Christmas time. Let it be a big player throughout the year for you, because they have your favorite team's gear no matter what you're looking for, even if it is of the knick-knack variety. Use the code DLLS at FOCO.com and you get 10% off your order. That's FOCO.com. So let's get to that confab that will happen tonight as the agent for Roki Sasaki, among other people, Corbin Burns too, will have a conference call tonight. Jeff, what's this all about?
Yeah, well, Joe Wolf is a pretty good guy, and he's always been straightforward and honest with the media and available when needed. And so he's kind of going to answer some Roki Sasaki questions. It seems like if I'm reading tea leaves, it seems like this would be the halftime report, or what's going to happen next, because he's had Sasaki meetings with at least 6, maybe 7 teams. And that's probably about the limit. The Rangers fortunately are in there. And so it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. If the clubs that got first round interviews, let's say, for lack of a better term, if any of them didn't make the cut, if the number's been trimmed down to a certain, a more manageable number than 7, he probably doesn't want to fly across the country to 7 different ballparks. So, he could knock off 2, for instance, in one trip to New York and, LA and just zip down the road to San Diego, something like that. But I don't think he wants to fly across the country. I would think that he'd want to know where the hell he's playing, though. So I've thought, though, it's an advantage if the Rangers can get him to town and let him see that ballpark, that it's just going to be an eye opener for him. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm pretty curious to hear what Joel has to say. He was pretty. I thought he was pretty straightforward and open at the winter meetings when he was talking about, he brought up the issue that Sasaki had with the media in Japan. It's like, well, maybe a smaller media pool or a smaller market might be where Sasaki wants to play. Well, all right, you look at who he's met with. They're all, for the most part, they have pretty big media contingents. San Diego and the Rangers are an exception. So I don't know. It's just, it'll be something to write. And if it does come down to, like handing out roses, hopefully the Rangers got a rose.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because Joel might just be calling everyone to kind of gloat about the big payday he just got with Corbin Burns. Now, he knew he was going to get a pretty big payday when his agent was Corbin Burns, but 6 years, 218, and a surprise player in that sweepstakes too, Jeff. We haven't paid super close attention to what Arizona's doing. It didn't appear, though, when you start with Zach Gallen, that they were in the market for a big-time ace-type pitcher, but I think they surprised some people and went out there and got him.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to try to win this thing, the playoff spot or whatever it is. And when you have the Dodgers in your division, you're not gonna out hit them, but maybe you can out pitch them. And Zach Gallen's terrific. Merrill Kelly, when healthy, is very, very good. And now you're going to add this guy, Corbin Burns. There's still Eduardo Rodriguez. Hey, maybe they hang on to our good buddy Jordan Montgomery now. I don't know, but they still need bullpen help. They've been linked to Kirby Yates too, but yeah, this signing, this is a pretty bold move. But Burns lives in Scottsdale, so he's going to have a short commute to the ballpark. He's going to, spend most of the season with his family and in his own home. So you wonder if that helps him out a little bit. So it's a pretty interesting signing. And the opt out after 26. There's some deferred money that's due as soon as he either fulfills the term of his contract or opts out. So it was a pretty interesting structure on that. But nobody had the Diamondbacks on that one.
No, and it's interesting. I thought so too, though. Basically, after 2 seasons, he has the opportunity to opt out. I guess he would choose that only if he doesn't feel like the team's headed in the right direction at that point.
You would think so, or maybe he adds a Cy Young and can boost his value a little bit, but he'll be a little bit older. I don't know. If I'm him, if he wants to pitch at home, if that was the big deal in the contract, the thing that got him over the top to some other pretty big offers, then why would he want to leave that unless it's just a disaster? That that would be the only thing, is if they're the Diamondbacks are last place teams and have no hope going forward, then maybe he opts out. But it seems like he's going to be pretty happy these next 2 seasons.
Yeah, sure does. And it seems like he'll fulfill that 6-year contract. And then at that point, he'll still only be 36. He's a 30-year-old guy and gets that huge contract at this stage in his career. So good for Corbin Burns. And again, nobody's feeling sorry for any of these 3 men. But, Jeff, I've been a little surprised that Andrew Heaney and Max Scherzer, both former Rangers, and Justin Verlander, I've heard Heaney's name a few times in connection with some other teams, but not very many. And I don't think I've heard Scherzer or Verlander once during this offseason.
Well, they're not at least Scherzer and Verlander aren't the pitchers they used to be, and they're coming off of injury plagued seasons. Really, the last couple have been injury plagued for them, and you wonder what they have left at this point. Now, I think they can help a team if they're healthy. The question is, how much? It's like, are you going to get 15 starts from these guys? Would 15 be a good number? And if it is, what are those 15 starts worth? I'm sure teams don't necessarily value them as much as the 2 players do. So I don't know. They'll end up with a team. I just think. And they'll probably end up with a good team, really. I mean, they don't want to go pitch for the White Sox, for instance. They'll end up with somebody good. They want to probably have better years than they finished on to finish their career, quote unquote, on a high note. So yeah, that is interesting. Heaney, I don't think he was quite in the tier of Kikuchi, Severino, Evaldi, but he's in that next group. And so when those pitchers start to go, then it's time. You've seen a lot of one-year deals for pitchers. I would assume that Andrew, coming off probably one of the better years of his career, is trying to get a couple million or a couple of years, and probably more than he made last season, which was 12 or 13 million from the Rangers. So that one might take a while, but you don't know. And hey, I haven't looked at the landscape overall on who still needs starting pitching, but as Chris Young says, you can never have enough starters. I don't think that is an indication that he's on his way back to the Rangers. But I do think that there'll be a team out there that will take him and be happy that they have him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the reality is, you're right. All three of those guys will land somewhere. But when you think about Scherzer and Verlander in particular, these guys, again, last year they were making north of $40 million each.
Right.
They ain't getting that. And it probably isn't out of the question to think they're not getting half of that. I don't know. Maybe they could.
Even half's a stretch. Okay, so Walker Buehler got 1 in 20. He's a lot younger. He is coming off of injury. Probably trying to, a strategic move by him to hit free agency again next year. Hopefully, coming off of a healthy and really good season. At least, that's probably what he's thinking. So, that guy got 20 million. So, do you want to throw 20 million at somebody at two guys who aren't going to be a sure thing to make 30 starts, to make 25 starts? So I don't know. It's hard, but you also think about, well, what else do they bring? Well, Max Scherzer brings intensity and professionalism, and really is not afraid to talk to other pitchers about what he's seeing and how the game is going and things like that. That's valuable stuff. I mean, that's part of what was so attractive to the Rangers on Nathan Eovaldi. So we'll see. But on Heaney, I just had a thought of the Brewers pop into my mind. I think the Orioles, I know they signed the other Japanese pitcher, Sagano, but they could probably use a pitcher. It'll be interesting to see how this comes out. And but they'll be in a camp. They just will.
Yeah, the Orioles came to my head with more so, I think, with the Scherzer Verlander thing after losing Corbin Burns. I mean, that's a big loss, right? But if you could get one of those guys who potentially, if healthy, could be that guy, right? But if you can get them at a reasonable price for a team like the Orioles, because, and again, they'd be interested in an Orioles. You're probably right about the Brewers too, but they'd be interested in an Orioles type team that that is good. It's loaded and young and has a chance to succeed not only this year but in years to come.
Sure, and they keep monkeying around with that fence at Camden Yards, so I think they're bringing it in now, where it's not as hitter friendly, or I'm sorry, as pitcher friendly. So does that eliminate the need for a left-handed pitcher? Do they want to stick to right-handers only? All right, well, maybe that's a good spot for Scherzer, who's pitched in DC for a long time, right? And rarities know the Sasaki press conference will not be live or online publicly. Same thing with Verlander. These guys want to win, and boy, the Orioles have been really good the last couple of years. So if you want to have a chance to win in your last season, then the Orioles make a lot of sense for those two.
Yeah, and with regard to Andrew, I think you're right. He has to be probably waiting for a hopefully a multi-year deal. I mean, it really was in a year where there was a dearth of pitching, largely because of injuries in the Rangers organization. Andrew Heaney really stepped up.
Yeah, he the best ability is availability, and he was the most durable guy the Rangers had. He made 31 starts, I believe. He didn't always go 7 innings. In fact, you got a little got a little worried at the fifth inning. But yeah, how about a team like Oakland? Now, I don't know that he wants to go play in
Yeah.
Sacramento, but if the price is right, maybe he does. Maybe I don't think that either maybe the Rays might be a team that would like him, and he because you do look at his numbers and the metrics on his fastball. It's he doesn't throw it very hard, but god dang, he gets a lot of swing and miss. So there are some definite clubs that probably have ideas and needs that Andrew Heaney would fit. Just waiting for the right situation and the right price.
Yeah, a good guy, Heaney, and I hope that that situation is there for him sooner rather than later. More coming up as we get to our batting cleanup segment, and there is quite a bit to talk about today. We're going to take a couple of trips down memory lane and things like that. It's all fun. It's all coming up on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
Well, John, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I don't know if there's good news in this scenario. No, I'm coming home tonight.
Oh,
I'll
nice.
be there in studio. I'll be there in studio with you tomorrow.
Good.
That means though that vacation is waning, and it's back to the grind, so to speak. And in fact, I'm sure that on our flight tonight, I'll be finishing off that Sasaki story, which will be for diehard members only. So become a diehard, $79.99 a month. You get access to to every story written by all of our team, whether it's the Cowboys, Mavs, Stars, or Rangers. We have more coming. As a diehard member, you get a free shirt, which are valued at $35. Strangely, I'm not wearing one today, but I do have, I think, 13 now, 13 or 14. Big number. But anyway, if you're not a diehard, you really need to. I'm sure there are a bunch of guys in the chat that will tell you just how worth it is and what a good value you get for $79.99.
Yeah, it's going to get more and more worth it as there is more and more news about which to write, and that's one of the things that Jeff does so well. Me personally, not wearing the merch today either. I had to represent. I don't know if you can tell, Jeff, from where you are, but
I can see it. I can see it.
That's a Detroit Lion right there, baby. And
Yeah.
they play tonight, a little Monday Night Football tonight, and then the winner-take-all sort of game against the Vikings next week. Gosh, I can't wait for that one. But I also can't wait for you to have the opportunity to get yourself some of our merchandise, which, again, Jeff and I, it's rare that the both of us are sitting here without any merch on because we both have a ton of it and we love it. It's great stuff. Get yourself some of our merchandise. Store.allcitynetwork.com. It's great merchandise, and it's there's a great variety of it. So go on there and get you some merch today. All right, time for us to clean things up here today. I did see you answered the question about whether or not the Sasaki press conference would be available. I did see you mentioned either 6 or 7 teams. The thing that was noted, I believe, yesterday was sort of a confirmation, I think, that the Dodgers had actually met with him. So when we're talking about Sasaki, we're actually talking now the 2 New York teams, San Francisco and the Dodgers, and then obviously the Rangers. And do we know that San Diego has actually met with him?
I think they're believed to have, and then the Cubs also.
And the Cubs, okay.
Had an audience with them. So, that's 7. And you would have thought the Mariners. So maybe that just hasn't leaked yet. But it's not 30, and it never was going to be 30. It's a pretty small targeted number. I mean, he had to have an idea coming in, who and, the Rangers' presence in Japan, notwithstanding the visits from Ross Fenstermaker and Chris Young. They have Joe Furukawa, who's been over there forever and ever, Haji Watabe, who's a great guy and was Kaz Fukumori's the interpreter, really one of the first Japanese players that the Rangers signed. It wasn't very good as it turned out, but Darvish, of course, was the big deal. So and again, as much as these people on Twitter and guys like me want to think, connect the dots. Nobody really knows. Nobody knows Roki Sasaki very well, and what he wants. You can pinpoint things like his background. He didn't come from a big city. He's from the country in Japan. It's a 3-hour trip from Tokyo to get to his house. He's young. He has at times expressed a desire for more opportunity to develop as a pitcher. And, all these Japanese pitchers, unfortunately, or at least the vast majority of them, come over and get hurt. So, does he want to go to a club that has had success in rehabilitating guys? And really, Keith Meister is the Rangers team physician. He's one of the leading 2 guys in the world at rebuilding elbows. The other one is the Dodgers team doctor, Neil Elatrach. So, and he just did Carson Beck's elbow, the Georgia quarterback. So, it's going to be interesting. Again, nobody really knows. Everybody thinks the Dodgers because of their willingness to spend money down the road on him, and of course with Ohtani and Yamamoto there, form a big 3 Japanese rotation with Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Sasaki. But he may not want that. So anyway, we'll see. But it's going to be drawing to an end. The international signing dead period ends January 15th, which is the day that teams will be signing all the players from Latin America. Clubs really want to know that day, hey, what's going to happen, because they have agreements in place with players and prospects down there. Also, whoever signs them is going to commit all of their money, or the vast majority of their money, to Sasaki, and will have to back out of deals that they've already made. So some really good players are going to become available all of a sudden. And so, these clubs like the Rangers, for instance, they haven't committed all of their money to international players. They have about $2.5 million to play with. So, if he goes to the Padres, for instance, well, who's the Padres' top guy? Are they still going to be able to sign him? Well, if he becomes a free agent, the Rangers might swoop in, or the Cubs. There's going to be like a second wave of agreements just because of the Sasaki thing. Now, if the Rangers do get Sasaki, they will have to back out on some of their agreements that they've made, but they haven't made any big ones like that the last couple of years. So it won't be terribly penal. But again, the situation, unfortunately, no matter who signs them, some international prospects are going to be affected adversely by this.
Yeah, and you brought that up before, and my initial instinct was, oh, man, I feel bad for those kids. But what you just said is the reality. If the Rangers know about him, whoever he is, and they have him high on their list, well, if the Rangers get Sasaki, everybody else is going to go, oh, man, we got to go grab that kid. Right. So the kid's probably going to still get his opportunity.
Yeah, and teams are coming up with deals with guys that they have agreements with that are like, okay, if we sign Sasaki, you get $20,000. If we don't sign him, we'll give you $80,000. They're deals like that. So it's going to be a little bit messy on January 15th.
Yeah, and again, it's the 15th to the 23rd. To your point, Jeff, that teams want to know right away. But if he hasn't signed anywhere by the 23rd, which he will, then he goes back to Japan.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
Yeah,
that is not.
No. I don't see that. I don't see that one taking place either. Speaking of Ohtani, by the way, I saw that he and his wife announced this weekend that they're about to have their first baby. So that's good for them. And speaking of Southern California baseball players, and a guy in Ohtani who's a former teammate of this guy, one of the biggest Philadelphia Eagle fans in the world, grew up in New Jersey and now plays for the Angels. You know him as Mike Trout. And last week at the Eagles game, there was a brawl. He has front row seats in the end zone. And there was a brawl at the Eagles game between a few players, not just this week, which if you're a Cowboys fan, you saw that thing spill into the tunnel yesterday. Last week, not surprisingly, the Eagles were fighting somebody else. And that happened right in front of Mike Trout. And Darius Slay Jr. was one of the people who was involved in that altercation. And Trout texted him after the game and said, "Hey, man, I had your back. I had your back, buddy." So anyway, Slay returned the favor, if you will, yesterday. There he is. He handed Mike Trout a ball. There were, of course, 4 turnovers by the Cowboys in that game. And one of those became the property and a souvenir of Mike Trout. And you see that big smile on his face as Darius Slay brings it over and gives him a quick handshake. What I love about that, Jeff, is just, it humanizes to me in many ways these rich and famous athletes like Mike Trout. Man, at heart, he's just a sports fan who thinks it's really cool to shake hands with Darius Slay.
Yeah, why? He could be sitting in a box. I think he has the money, to buy him a suite, and he's down there. Pretty good seats, mind you, but still, he's down there with somebody who has a 9-to-5 job.
Yep.
Guy shows up and goes, "Holy crap, Mike Trout sits next to me." How cool is that?
Yeah,
and Trout probably buddies with the people there, and but yeah, that's pretty cool. And that. He hasn't lost the jersey, I guess, or the Philly in him. He wants to go and sit with the people and brave the weather, and because the elements can suck there, as you know, John. Probably much better than I do. You've probably been there a bunch, and
yeah, I've been there many times in the cold. But yesterday, apparently, an unseasonably warm day. So that was nice for all parties concerned, no doubt about that. The fact that Trout does, and especially in the end zone, right? I mean, 50-yard line seats are the quote unquote best because you can see everything. But I think that Trout just wants to sort of, that's 50-yard line. You're not super close to the action. End zone, you're close to at least some action every game.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, for 2 quarters, you're.
That's right.
The home team's coming your way, but
yeah.
Maybe he boos Santa like all those Philly fans, or maybe he
probably threw batteries. Yeah, like all of them. Yeah, I was on the field. I was on the field down there when batteries were being thrown. Now none hit me, thank goodness. But they were snowballs, and you could see they were kind of landing and breaking over there as we try to get this mic set just right. Okay, there we go. We've got it now. That was a very, very clandestine move by the Prophet there. I'm telling you, that was genius. Never even noticed him, did you? We're keeping him under wraps yet, but we're going to have a big reveal for one of these days with the Prophet. So, all right, one other thing I want to get to. We only got a few minutes, Jeff, but I love this. We, of course, know very well about the baseball fandom of both Bush presidents, George W. and George H.W., one kind of associated more with the Astros, of course, our George associated with the Rangers. But anyway, who knew that Jimmy Carter was such a baseball fan, a huge Braves fan who knew and was governor when Hank Aaron hit his, record-breaking home run. And anyway, in 95, of the World Game 6 of the 95 World Series, when the Braves won the World Series, their first ever title, President Jimmy Carter threw out the first pitch.
This was just moments ago. Former Georgia governor, former President Jimmy Carter to throw out the first ball, and look at this pitch. If the ump wants to give him the high strike, that's right in there, and with some hop on it. 43, we're told, on the radar gun. Not bad. Usually, look at this. Afterwards, still spry, hops over the railing. And he's going to get a hug here from Jane Fonda. So already it's been a good night for Jimmy Carter.
Sitting next to Ted Turner, and who owned the team at the time, and Jane Fonda. But I'm telling you, that pitch, I mean, we talk about George W.'s pitch right after 9/11. That was a pretty good toss by Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, and he would have been, if you do the math, he would have been 71, I think. 70, 71, bringing in some people like that. So that's pretty good. I was telling my family this yesterday because I'm a dork and like this stuff. She lives in Loveland, Colorado, my sister. And so they have a series of streets that are named after presidents. One of them is Taft Street. And Howard Taft was the 27th president. right after Teddy Roosevelt and before Woodrow Wilson. And I think Taft became a Supreme Court justice afterward. But Howard Taft invented the 7th inning stretch. He went to a game in Washington, and he's the president. And 7th inning, he just decided to stand up, and so everybody stood up. And so that's the birth of the 7th inning stretch. Howard was a big man. He got stuck in a bathtub in the White House, so he needed the stretch.
We are your baseball and president information station right here. Make sure you tune in every day. We've got all the news about baseball and about presidents. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you as always. Jeff, great to see you. We'll be glad to have you back here tomorrow, and we'll keep you posted on what happens at the ballpark later today. For now, thanks for watching, and we will see you again tomorrow for another edition of the DLLS Rangers Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.